Cray Cross Epic, Chapter 1, Episode 1, The Beginning. It was quite difficult to set that tree alight. It was even said that with 7 times the amount of flames from a furnace it would still not burn. Thus, it was called the Nanakamado, Japanese Rowan. Due to its fire resistance, in some regions it is planted in gardens as a fire retardant tree plant. Frankly, I think that's an overestimation. Rorowa wailed in his heart as he ran as fast as he could through the garden wheat field. He looked unreliable, his body thin and his sword skills so-so. When it came to things he could be proud of, yeah, honestly, there was nothing. That was the conclusion he had come to after living for 17 years. Though the ones who had raised him had always said something like this: "Your body will not burn, so set alight your soul, Rorowa, the Rowan Bioroid." Similarly running as fast as he could along the wheat field roadway, a young man hit Rorowa on the back. The large man named Olivi was an olive Bioroid. Both his height and physique were at least twice that of Rorowa. "So much for what they say. This is definitely gonna burn us." Out of breath, his vision wavering. Even so, he could not stop his tangled legs. After all, the insect whose entire body was alight with flames, Burner Ant, was pursuing them from behind. "You nuisances! Nuisances!" While shouting, the 3 meters tall giant ant let out flames. The fire caught on the hems of their clothes, and their clothes burst into flames. Ouch! Ah! Hot! Hot! Why was this happening? As he did a strange tap dance to put out the fire, like a revolving lantern, Rorowa's memories came back to him. It was just this morning. As the duo traveled around planet Cray, they overheard a conversation in the Thuri district. "There's a burner ant rampaging in the wheat field. Everyone is so afraid of it, so no one will go near it. It's good that the field hasn't been destroyed yet, but I wonder when it will be burned down." By his side, Olivi, his foster parent and older brother, was clenching his fists tightly, his virile face full of righteous indignation. His intense olive-colored eyes seemed to be burning with flames. "Hey, Olivi?" Rorowa softly called out as he had an unpleasant premonition. And unfortunately, they became true. "Let's go and take down Burner Ant." And that was what they set out to do. But of course, it would not work out that way. After all, neither of them were very good at fighting. Bioroids were a race of those who have a plant factor. Their appearance is similar to that of humans, wearing the flowers and leaves of their alter ego on their hair and body. Olivi was an olive Bioroid who looked to be in his mid-20s by human standards, with olive leaves curling around his hair. A pendant that looked like a ripe black olive fruit swung across the chest of his worn clothes. He carried a longsword, though it had never seen use in battle. At most, it was used to clear away obstructive undergrowth blocking an animal trail. Then there was his younger brother, Rorowa, who would turn 17 this year. His dark green hair, decorated with the leaves and berries of the rowan, and he had a rather pitiful expression on his face. His eyes and nose were clean-cut as was the characteristic of his race, but his unconfident atmosphere left a weak impression. He too carried a rapier with the hilt decorated with rowan, but he could not even remember the last time he used it. It could be said that it was far too reckless for those two to challenge the Burner Ant. Coo. After running through the wheat field, they finally ran to a deep irrigation canal. Looking behind them, Burner Ant was gradually approaching them, spewing a thin cloud of smoke. Olivi's face twisted in anguish. "If this is it, then it can't be helped. I'll have to use my last resort." The reassuring words of his older brother. As Rorowa turned towards him with expectations, Olivi outstretched his arms, grabbing him by the torso. "Eh?" With no time for resistance, Olivi threw Rorowa. Not across the canal, but instead at the Burner Ant. "Go, Rorowa! Headbutt!" Wah! The clincher, Rorowa's stone head. With excellent control, it was a direct hit on Burner Ant's head. Its large body shook, then fell to the ground. So far, so good. It seemed like most of the brain cells had been called to the heavens, though it would be best to give it the benefit of the doubt. The problem began from here. "All right." Ouch. As Rorowa stood up while holding his head, something hit his toes. It was Bernard's arm, which was still on fire. Ah! The arm that was kicked away touched the dry wheat field. In that moment, the wheat grains burst into flames. Unfortunately, it took several hours for the fire to be extinguished, and the surroundings were left burnt to the ground. Upon returning to the village, Rorowa bowed his head so deeply and profoundly that it touched the ground. I'm so sorry. Heave ho, it's okay, it's okay. It was only a matter of time before it would burn them anyway. It was the turnip dryad, Heave Ho Turnip, who said this in a troubled yet gentle manner. A dressed-up turnip with 4 limbs, round eyes, and a cute mouth. Dryads were spirits born from plants. Most of them engaged in daily farm work, working hard to maintain food production. While Rorowa was apologizing at the front of the wheat store, many carts loaded with vegetables were passing by on the road. They were in Thuri, a rural area in the west land of Zoo. Though there were no scenic beauties or local specialties, the soil was rich, and the Dryads had built a fine village where they made a good living. More than 90% of the food on planet Cray was produced in this lush, green nation. Zoo and the Dryads held everyone's stomachs as the food supply of Cray. That's what I told him too! Rorowa mentally sighed at his older brother, Olivi, who was behaving brazenly well next to him. But for some reason, he couldn't come to hate him. He was aware that he lacked the ability to pull attention to himself and lively communication skills. How have things been these days? Is it just the usual around here? I've heard it's been pretty tough in the Dragon Empire and United Sanctuary. I guess it doesn't matter since they're across the ocean. When Olivia threw in some small talk, Heave-Ho Turnip put its hand on its chin as if it were troubled. Heave-Ho, we've been trying to keep things as normal as possible, though anxiety is anxiety. But if we don't go on as normal, everyone will go hungry. Oh, that's true. I hold great respect for what you guys do. If you guys have any problems, just let us know and we'll do whatever we can. Heave-ho, there are none. Oh. As Olivia made a fool of himself, Heave-ho Turnip shrugged their shoulders. It seemed that they were far from trustworthy to it. So we'll leave it at that. We're thinking of heading to the next village by the end of today. Olivia gave a slight bow. This is how the two of them lived their lives, traveling from village to village. If someone was in trouble, they would do their best to help, and after the problem was solved, they would go to the next village. And so it went. Honestly, the most of them could not be solved. As Olivia turned to leave, Heave-Ho Turnip gripped his sleeve. Wait, I also want an inn. This must be a chance encounter. You should stay overnight. No, sorry. It won't be as much gold as I lost from the wheat that was burnt. So you say. By the way, how much is a stay? Heave-ho, 1 gold coin per person. That much? 1 gold coin would be 10 days, or if it were bread, 300. No, never mind. Yeah, the inn is this way. While they were being guided by Heave-ho Turnip, Rorowa whispered in Olivi's ear. Hey, Olivie, 1 gold coin is way over our budget. I know. Sell this if something goes wrong. With an expression of anguish, Olivie clutched the pendant on his chest. It was a black stone that resembled an olive fruit, with the fine milled goldwork that surrounded it shining. Heave-ho Turnip, who was walking in front of them, glanced at it. You wouldn't be able to sell a dirty necklace like that. Ah, did you hear us? Heave-ho, that's right. There's been a problem. Heave-ho Turnip pointed to the cobblestone paved crossroad. Following the tip of its finger, they saw that the huge stone had been scraped away, leaving behind what looked like huge furrow. It seemed to go all the way to the outskirts of the city. There have been a lot of those strange marks lately. Not only the roads, my wheat and turnips has also been destroyed. Who could be doing it? If you find them, punish them. Got it. Leave it to us. Olivia replied with a voice of token cheerfulness, but his eyes carried a sharp light. With an unprecedentedly serious look, Rorowa called out to him. Olivia? What's wrong? Why such a look? It's nothing. Olivia laughed, hitting Rorowa's head. Do many people remember the day they were born into this world? At the very least, Rorowa remembers it vividly. Yo, kiddo, sleep time is over. The young man's voice was rough, impolite, and with no consideration to the other party. The consciousness wrapped like a cradle by thin, large leaves shortly awakened. Of course, the man would not allow even a gentle awakening. So wake up. Mornin', mornin', good mornin'. With those last words, his toes came down, ripping the thin leaf membrane that enveloped the boy. And like that, he was kicked into the outside world. This was the first memory of his life. Bioroids did not have fathers or mothers. They were born in plants. Standing in front of him was an olive bioroid, a black pendant shining on his chest. The name's Olivie. Feel free to call me Big Brother. Onisama works as well. Olivie? That's it. Even though a bioroid was born in a grown-up form, their brain could not keep up with such rapid development. The stranger's bravado was frightening, and he looked around as if to ask for help. Heh. Ha! He couldn't help but let out a scream because of a horrible scene spreading around him. Originally, it was a forest with a good view or something, but now, the low-lying vegetation were gray and withered, and the trees had lost all their leaves. A sweet, rotten smell filled the air, enough to make one feel sick in the stomach. Birds, insects, and anything else that could be called life were dying as far as the eye could see. One could only imagine that they had been overrun by some tremendous force. In the midst of all this was a scene of himself holding his knees like a tightly closed bud and the man that stood arrogantly before him. By the way, had I left you alone, you too would have perished. It's a pity you were born in this time. My condolences. What should I do? You want to help? Help? To this day, he still wondered why he couldn't answer that question by reflex. Was it because he was newborn and not yet capable of making decisions? Was it because he was too afraid of Olivie to speak up? Or was it because he did not want to live? Answer. Yes. Okay. However, there are some conditions. You're going to come with me to fill this world with life. Fill with life? Again, like a powerless parrot, he could hear the words but could not comprehend what was being said. What's with the look in your eyes? Saving others is a great and outstanding thing. You look as if you think I can't do it. Olivie smiled, puffing out his chest. I'm not trying to be like the famous Blaster Blade. Even if I tried my best, that would be impossible, but still. Olivie grabbed the boy's hand and pulled him up forcefully. The boy managed to get up on his 2 feet, almost tripping over himself. A breeze filled with ashes blew past him, caressing his cheeks. We too can help others, no matter how small or trivial it may be. The world is wide. Ain't that right, partner? Uh-huh. Okay, from now on, your name is Rorowa. Standing back up even if you are burned 7 times. Rorowa of the Rowan. That was his first encounter with Olivie. He would later learn that the trees had died due to an unknown catastrophe, and that Rorowa was the only bioroid to survive. It was a miracle that he was even rescued from the cradle and was able to be born. Since then, together with Olivie, they had traveled around the world for 17 years. In that time, he saw many different peoples and lands. United Sanctuary, a holy nation that fuses faith and technology, values, justice, and order. The regular army, Royal Paladin, possess many knightly orders who work hard to maintain the security of the country. Dragon Empire, with vast territory that stretches from east to west. It is an empire ruled by dragons with great power, with the first pillar army Kagero at its head. Stargate, a large nation located at the southernmost tip of the planet, a land where cultural exchanges with other planets flourishes. It is home to many clans that excel in science and technology, such as Nova Grappler and Dimension Police. It is also the country where the Link Joker, who tried to invade planet Cray since during the Great Starlight War, have been residing ever since. The Dark Zone, a nation ruled by the Demonkin through magic. This is also where the Spike Brothers, a clan of players from a popular sport on planet Cray, Gallows Ball, and Pale Moon, a glamorous nightmare circus troupe, operate. Magalanika, filled with the inhabitants of the sea, including pirates and the navy, it is an archipelago region where immortal inhabitants such as zombies live. Furthermore, the idol unit Bermuda Triangle, made up of adorable mermaids, can soothe the heart of any person. Last but not least, There is our zoo. As aforementioned, it is a food-producing nation, and is the home to great nature, the academic capital of the high beasts. It is also the base of the mega colony, a criminal group of insects like burner ants whom Rorowa and Olivia met. As they journeyed from village to village, nation to nation, Rorowa and Olivia did what they could. There were times when they did maintenance on an armor, fought a crack in the plagued village, and cut tickets for a circus. It was not just once or twice that they had been in danger. Wasn't that amazing? Chrono's command dragon! Don't they say he was summoned from the future to help the Chronojet dragon? No. We could have died if we got involved. In the course of their travels, they had seen the heroes, whose names they had only heard of, fight in the distance. Of course, as Rorowa stated, the correct action for the general public to take was to keep as far as possible, and as one could see, Olivia was brimming with curiosity. Even so, the fact that they did not end up in a fatal pinch was as expected. Compared to Olivia, who was unexpectedly good at getting the gist of things, Rorowa could not get the gist of things. Whenever he whined about it, Olivia would laugh. It's only natural. You're only 17 and your head is still but a bud. How old do I look? 25, maybe a bit more. Are you 27? 1,005 years old. No, maybe I'm 4. Heh, that joke's not funny, Olivia. What? That's how much respect you should have for me, so give me that juice. I don't want to, it's gonna spill. As usual, Olivia made jokes and comforted Rorowa in a way he did not recognize, but the feeling of what should I do never went away. Today was no different, and he had ended up burning the wheat field. The flames that had flared up as soon as the fire was lit still lingered in his mind. Perhaps it was because he was a bioroid, but the burning of a field that had been carefully cultivated was more painful to him than having his own body cut down. Can't sleep. Rorowa lay in his bed at the inn. The more he tried to sleep, the more the flames came back to his mind. His eyes were alert from the uneasiness. Glancing to his side, Olivia was sleeping while heartily snoring. Nom. Can't eat any more. What a cliché dream. While laughing involuntarily, Rorowa rose from the bed, putting on the jacket that was hanging and carrying his rapier. As he left the inn while trying not to make a sound, he could see that no one was in the street. 2 moons that were supposed to be rising in the sky were nowhere to be seen. Perhaps it was a new moon, and the darkness was getting thicker. The wind was strong and made his heart flutter in his chest. Rorowa hurried down the road to the wheat field. The burnt field was covered with black ash with no trace of the beautiful golden ears of wheat. Looking at the devastated scene again, Rorowa was lost for words. Unable to stand still, he knelt down on the ground and touched the field with both hands. No matter how bad a bioroid he was still a bioroid. They had the power to bless and nurture plants with a magical power. As if in prayer, he gathered all his power, and his palms became covered with a white, pale light that poured into the earth. But there was no reaction at all. It was when he looked up in despair. From the ash-covered field, a young sprout emerged. Soon, another and another. Young wheat sprouts. Finally, lush green wheat grew from the entirety of the burnt-out field. Yay! However, just before the ears of wheat could appear, something strange happened. They stopped growing and turned black as if it was rotting from the roots. In the blink of an eye, the wheat turned from green to black to white-gray and then withered away. It was just like the scene of that day. Why? It was at that moment when Rorowa screamed out. He heard a huge mass dragging itself across the ground, and he heard a voice from somewhere. His feet collapsed under him. It was a repulsive sound that would make you feel as if you were being sucked into the abyss. Unable to speak, he slowly looked behind. Within the darkness was an unidentifiable unknown. Countless glowing eyes dyed with a murderous bright red. The unknown may not have been just 1 or 2 things. Zoo. He could only guess from the sound of the dragging that it was something long and large. Suddenly, the huge ruts he had seen in the village came into Rorowa's mind. It couldn't be. Was it pursuing him? Why? The unknown spread open its dark red maw and laughed. His legs trembled, unable to move. His teeth chattered. As a biological instinct, he realized that he stood no chance against it, unable to run, scream, much less confront it. Oi, oi, Rorowa! You're the one that told me to go with you when you pee at night. Olivie, I'm lonely and I'm going to cry. The familiar sound of his voice faintly reached out to Rorowa, but his memory cut off there. The muffling sound of digging through the soil came to the ears of the slumbering Rorowa. The scent of the ground after the rain, the heavy feeling that deprived his body of freedom. Because of his muddied thoughts, it took him a while to realize that he was apparently in the ground. Somehow he managed to wriggle around, and he could feel the soil on his limbs moving. With another sound, the feeling of the earth on his face disappeared. Suddenly, a flash of light shone through Rorowa's eyelids. Peering at Rorowa from above the hole dug into the ground was a girl holding a lantern and a shovel. From her appearances, she seemed to be the same age as Rorowa and was probably a human. Her hair tied up high and her strong-willed gaze were impactful. Using all his might, Rorowa somehow managed to raise his upper body from the ground. He stretched out his dirt-covered fingertips towards the girl. You are? Here is? If there was a problem with the manner in which he acted, it was probably the fact that his whole body was covered in dirt. He looked like an eerie zombie in the darkness of the night. The girl's fire-red eyes watched in astonishment. She tried to swallow her screams. She was not able to swallow them. Ah! The girl swung her shovel. Of course, she swung it at Rorowa. Wait a minute! His words were too late. Zack! And with a particularly dull sound echoing, the cutting edge pierced through Rorowa's shoulder. As a result, Rorowa's left arm fell off and onto the ground. The screams of the now soundless girl resounded throughout. It went without saying that it took time for them to regain their composure. Bad. Eh? I said my bad, but you wouldn't normally expect to find a person buried in the ground. Are you one of those races, or is it a hobby? The girl clenched her fists, a stern look upon her face. I don't think it's a hobby. I don't even know why I was buried. In Rorowa's right hand was his torn off left arm. Strangely, there was no pain. His left arm was shriveled like a dry radish, and he seemed to have had little function from the beginning. The cross-section of his shoulder also resembled a shriveled vegetable. His clothes were also in tatters and like they could fall apart in any moment. Rorowa, who was dug up safely after the previous madness, could finally see where he was. They were at the base of the huge tree. Its roots had risen above the ground and were spreading out, and the trunk was so thick that it was hard to tell at a glance how far it stretched into the sky. Was winter coming? Or was it just an old tree? As he looked up, he could see that the tree was sparsely covered with dead leaves, which scattered as the wind blew. Surrounding the huge tree was a stone brick building. As it was late at night, no one else could be seen with the flickering torch. Apparently he had been buried underneath these roots without an idea why. When he tried to remember what happened before he lost consciousness, his head would hurt, unclear as if covered in mist. The last thing was, that's right, he ate dinner as usual and fell asleep. Then, where was Olivie? He squinted his eyes, trying to pull together the threads of memories from then. Pya! A small dragon jumped out from behind the girl. It had fur the same colors as the fire-red clothes she wore, 2 magnificent horns. A small flame was burning at the end of its tail. The girl looked to Rorowa as she rubbed her cheek against the dragon. This child is Momoke, a proud Kagero dragon, and I'm Ratty, the Drag Ritter. Drag Ritters were the knights of the Dragon Empire who fought alongside dragons. They were also known as Dragon Knights, with Nahalem and many others having made a name for themselves. However, a Drag Ritter fought while riding a dragon. To think that there were dragons this small. How cute. Cute? And the girl's voice suddenly dropped. He realized that he had stepped on a landmine and hastily changed the topic. Ah, that's right, I'm Rorowa. I see. Why were you buried in such a place? That's what I'd like to know. You must be a very active sleepwalker, infiltrating the sanctuary and burying yourself in the ground. Sanctuary? Where are we? Here, right under a world tree. Indeed, it seemed that this big tree was a world tree. World trees were trees with strong magical power that existed in many places on planet Cray. Under its influence, the surrounding trees grow plentifully, and the animals live freely. Cities often flourished at the foot of a world tree, and priestesses existed to protect them. In his travels with Olivie, he had seen world trees from a distance. but this was the first time he'd gone this close. Did he get transported through time and space without realizing it? If so, he needed to get back to Olive as soon as possible. What part of the zoo continent is this? East? No, perhaps the west. Zoo? Radalina burst into laughter. What kind of joke is that? This is Stoicheia. Western Stoicheia. Thury. Stoicheia? He parroted back the strange word. Radalina nodded. I mean, Zoo has been gone for 3,000 years. Are you still asleep? Radalina nodded vigorously. Please wait, for it to be like that. 3,000 years was too big a number to be realistic. Furthermore, for a nation as large as Zoo to have disappeared was too ridiculous even as a joke. Just as he was about to grab her by the shoulders and question her, they heard a sharp voice from the stone brick building. Who's there? Looking over, he saw a group of bioroids with torches in their hands coming towards them. It was a sacred area, so they must have been guarding it. Tch! With a noisy click of her tongue, Radalina violently grabbed something and threw it. With great control and a strong arm, it knocked down one of the guards. However, the thing that was thrown was my arm! Let's go, Momoke. Pya! Throwing down her shovel and lantern, she ran away from the guards. When Rorowa followed after her, she gave him a blatantly disgusted look. Why are you following me? Because it feels like they're really angry. That's right. I knew it. At the same timing when Rorowa was about to shout, he heard noisy voices saying, There they are! Don't let them get away! He was almost at a state of tears, but he would not cry. And so, the world of 3,000 years later, without any reasoning why, without a chance for rebuttal, raised its curtains.